It's time to stop the slaughter of our native land. No more telling lies, drawing lines in the sand. Maybe we didn't know, but surely now it's underhand. No more crocodile tears. Did he die in vain? Did he make us cry? Did he suffer all his pain? So we could knock it down again and again and again. Chapter 30. Yeah, come on, Wattle soldiers. Wildlife warriors get angry. For some years I was aware that Steve Irwin and his mum and dad were into my music. No doubt Rip Rip Woodchip would have been right up Steve's alley. I'm sure Goodbye Blinky Bill would have resonated with him as well. When I discovered that he was buying Brigalow land in Queensland just to save it, I knew we had similar dreams and a lot in common. We were both besotted with the Aussie habitat in its original state. Steve first contacted me when he had finished building his stadium at Australia Zoo at Biwa on the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Steve asked me to sing at the opening on Australia Day 2003. He called the stadium area the Crocoseum. It holds 5,000 people and has a crocodile pool in the middle. The stage setup that is there now was built on my advice. I've performed on that stage nearly every Australia Day since it first opened. That first day he introduced me to one of my favourite birds, the wedge-tailed eagle. I was able to hold this magnificent creature on my arm. It was heavy, but I persevered because of the privilege. I held my face as close to the bird as I could and looked into her eyes. It was like looking into another world of pale blue as I told her how much I loved her. I think she got my vibe and didn't hook her powerful beak into my nose. It brings tears to my eyes thinking about it. Those eagle eyes can spot a rat on the ground from thousands of feet above in the sky. I'm so proud of our eagle, and what a joy it is when a pair of them fly past at eye level at Springbrook. You never hear them, so you have to keep your eyes open. We have an eagle's view from the cottage. The daily crocodile and bird show is quite something to watch, and is still continued by Steve's great mate and director of the zoo, Wes Mannion, along with other staff. Being a bird lover, the bird show to me is even more spectacular than the crocodile show. While Steve was alive, he always made sure he would be around to do the croc show on Australia Day when I was there. I can tell you that he was exactly the same off-camera as he was on television. His bright eyes shone with an infectious enthusiasm. He was absolutely the real deal, always a big kid at heart, and that never changed. As famous as he became, he still liked to be up at Sparrowfart and drive the quad bike around the zoo. Like me, he thought there was nothing better than being in the bush early in the morning. I reckon he had to force himself to become a star just to get his conservation message across. It was really only in those Australia days that I came to know Steve and his family. We always had sandwiches and a chinwag after the show. Steve loved to include me in his crocodile performance, with plenty of his staff croc handlers around me for safety. It was a memorable day when he introduced Bindi and Little Bob to me. Bindi was unbelievably polite and lovable. Little Bob, who was showing off by wrestling a stuffed toy crocodile on the couch, was encouraged to show me his ukulele. Young children often present me with ukuleles to sign after my show, so I was prepared for this. I said, "Bob, I'll play a very simple song for you on your ukulele that my dad taught me. It has 2 chords only." So I tuned his ukulele and sang, "On my ukulele, I keep strumming gaily. On..." Little Bob grabbed the uke back and said, "It's not your ukulele, it's my ukulele." He was quite suspicious of me after that. Then Steve gave me a small carpet snake to hold. Well, Bob wasn't to be outdone by this ukulele stealer, so he put the snake around his own neck. Steve and Terry were delighted. "That's the first time little Bob has handled a snake," they said. I think I brought out Bob's competitive nature. When he's as famous as his dad, I'll remind him of that one day. Where was I when Steve died? Like most Aussies, I remember it well. On the 4th of September 2006, I was in Leonora in Western Australia. The little mining town was having a small festival to revitalise its spirit. I'm not sure why I took the risk of doing a show in such a small town. Only 150 people had booked. My manager, Phil, rang me in the afternoon and, very emotional, said, "Steve Irwin has died. He was killed by a stingray." It was very hard to believe. Not Steve. Suddenly, I didn't give a hoot about the small audience numbers. I told the festival organisers to tell the town that the show was now free, that I would do a special performance in memory of Steve Irwin. You know, it was mainly the local black people who filled the remaining seats in the hall. They also knew and loved Steve, more proof of his broad appeal. The songs poured out of me that night. I chose every song I could think of that related to the spirit of the land and its beauty. The crowd was right with me in understanding my emotions. It was soon after that night I was asked to sing at Australia Zoo for Steve's memorial service, to be televised live around the world. I knew I had to do it, as hard as it would be. True Blue, of course, was a song that could have been written for Steve. As far as I'm concerned, he epitomised the meaning of the words. I'd recorded an orchestral version of True Blue not long before Steve died, so I decided to use the orchestra backing track, but I would play the guitar live and sing live. Thank goodness they asked me to sing Home Among the Gum Trees first. It gave us all a short breather from the emotions. That settled my nerves a bit, and the crowd helped by singing along. Everyone seems to remember me singing True Blue at Steve Irwin's memorial service. I found strength from realising it wasn't my luxury to cry. My job was to sing for Steve's family and his mates. I needed to be strong for them. But when they brought Steve's Toyota ute into the Crocosseum, loaded it up with his swags and possessions, and all his close mates and the staff from the zoo lined up in front of me, boy, was it hard to keep it together. I think it would have been quite weak and selfish of me to break down. Steve was a mate, but I wasn't as close to him as those around me that day, and his family was sitting above me in the stadium. I'm usually quite pathetic at funerals, but this was an honour and I wasn't going to spoil it. I got through it, but not as easily as it may have appeared on television. I'm proud to have sung for such a great Aussie hero. Initially, I was inundated with emails and messages of praise from all around the world, and to this day they still occasionally come in from overseas after all these years. It seems that fans all over the world understood what my words meant. It's probably the most international thing I'll ever be recognised for. Steve's legacy, of course, carries on through Terry, Bindi, young Robert and Wes, Steve's mate. The zoo also purchased a large area in the north of Cape York Peninsula and is battling to keep mining out of it. The Australia Zoo is still progressing with new ways to enlighten our kids about the need to save habitat for the world's wildlife. To me, an untouched area of Aussie bush is more valuable than any museum of Australian history, and such bush is becoming more rare. To walk through country that has been disturbed only by Aboriginal people is very spiritual and a privilege. I'm sure Steve felt the same, and I hope the generous spirit of our hero is never lost. It was an obvious idea to write a song in memory of Steve, but rather than write an opportunistic song just about him, I thought it was more appropriate to write something to support his charity, Wildlife Warriors. I'm sure Steve would have preferred that. So the song I wrote, Wildlife Warriors, went on an album of the same name. Money from that album was donated to his charity. It gave me a chance to compile an album of all the songs I knew Steve would have approved of, songs that were about the nature of Australia.